Hey, what's up, my friends? It's Danny, and today we're talking about one of my favorite topics, taxes. Just kidding, guys. It's actually not one of my favorite topics in that I'm not a big fan of taxes, and especially dumb taxes. But unfortunately, it's one of those things that affects all of us. I recently made a video about the proposed California wealth and exit tax, which has become the most popular video on my channel with over 500,000 views. You can go check that video out right over here if you haven't seen it yet. Now, since this seems to be such a hot topic, on today's video, I'm going to tell you about a new insane national wealth tax that could be devastating for everyone. Now, I know what you're thinking.
But Danny, is this another one of those taxes that only affects the super rich? If it doesn't affect me, why should I care?
Well, guys, let me tell you, regardless of how much money you make, regardless of your current net worth, I guarantee you that this wealth tax that I'm going to talk about today will 100% affect you. Stay until the end of this video and you'll find out exactly why. And if you want to increase your net worth for free right now, click on the link down in my description, open an account over at Webull, put in $100, and they will give you 4 free stocks valued at up to $1,600 each. So go grab those stocks right now and let's go. All right, guys, let's hit it. Now, it was just reported that Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren, who will be joining the Senate Finance Committee, plans to introduce a nationwide wealth tax. And if you like these types of videos about taxes, do me a quick favor and hit the like button on this video. It will tell YouTube to share the video and show it to more people. It supports the channel. I really appreciate it, and it's absolutely free. Under her proposal, the tax would be 2% on all wealth above $50 million in assets and 6% on all wealth above $1 billion. Now, the thing to keep in mind with a tax like this is that it is not a tax on income, but rather a tax on total wealth wherever it's located. So presumably that would include things like real estate, stocks, private companies, maybe cryptocurrency, and everything else that an individual or a family owns. That's right, you guys. This is another tax on those evil, bad, rich people. Tax the rich. Make them pay their fair share. Here's the thing though, guys. What this really amounts to is an attempt to redistribute wealth. The government wants to really double dip on this one. Let's tax people when they earn the money and then tax them again if their assets exceed a certain arbitrary amount. Doesn't that seem kind of un-American to you? It sure does to me. Anyhow, Warren touts that the tax would raise almost $3 trillion over the course of a decade, and it would only directly apply to less than 0.1% of the population, about 75,000 families to be exact. But again, guys, that doesn't tell the whole story. As I'm about to explain, that estimated number of money raised is actually very flawed. But first, let's do some math to see how much money we're really talking about here. For fun, I went over to the most recent edition of the Forbes Richest Americans and picked out some of my favorites. Let's see how much extra cash these people would have to pay if this wealth tax actually passes. First up is the greatest basketball player of all time, in my opinion, Michael Jordan. According to Forbes, Jordan is estimated to have a net worth of $1.6 billion. By the way, if you're also a Michael Jordan fan, give me a big thumbs up on the video. So under the wealth tax, the first $50 million is tax-free. Yes! And the rest, up to $1 billion, would be taxed at 2%, which would equal $19 million. The next $600 million would be taxed at 6%, which would be another $36 million. So the total tax bill for MJ each year under the wealth tax, $55 million. That is a lot of extra taxes to pay. And if you think that's a big number, let's really have some fun with this at some other billionaires' expense. Elon Musk recently became the richest man in the world as Tesla and SpaceX have literally taken off. As of the date of making this video, his net worth is estimated at $185 billion. Now that is a big number. Now keep in mind that most of Elon's wealth is tied up in Tesla stock and stock options and things like that, which are gains that are not yet realized. I did make another video about another tax in California that wants to tax unrealized gain. You can actually check that video out right over here. So let's go ahead and do the math for Elon, because he would have to start paying taxes on all of those assets. Now again, the first billion minus that 50 million exemption would be taxed at 2%, equaling $19 million, just like MJ. But then Elon's got another 184 billion to be taxed at 6%, which is just over, wait for it guys, $11 billion per tax every single year. Now, I know that right about now you're feeling really bad for Elon Musk. No, you're probably not. Not surprisingly, many of the country's billionaires are against this tax. So suffice it to say that Elizabeth Warren doesn't have many fans in the billionaire community. Now, I know what you're thinking. This wealth tax directly affects a very small percentage of people. Why should I care? I'm going to tell you why in just a minute and tie all of this in for you. But I want you to know that regardless of how much money you make, regardless of your current net worth, I guarantee you that you will be affected by this proposal. And you don't have to take my word for it. The Tax Foundation, which is the nation's leading independent tax policy nonprofit, actually analyzed this wealth tax, and here's what they had to say. According to their nonpartisan research, Warren's wealth tax would reduce long-run GDP in the US by 0.37%. Now, GDP is the measure of everything that's produced in the US, and that number is currently just over $31 trillion a year. Therefore, a 0.37% reduction is about $116 billion. That's a lot, folks. The Tax Foundation also says that a wealth tax would face serious administrative and compliance challenges due to the valuation difficulties and tax evasion and avoidance issues associated with the tax. In fact, several European countries have already implemented a wealth tax previously, and guess what, guys? Most of them have since repealed it because of limited revenue collection, administration and compliance costs, tax avoidance, and evasion issues. The Tax Foundation said that the experience of enacting and then repealing these wealth taxes indicates that they were not effective tools to redistribute wealth and narrow wealth inequality in these countries. And yet, people like Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, who also was in favor of a wealth tax, keep pushing on with these ridiculous proposals. Now, let me tell you why this will affect you, even if your net worth is less than $50 million. First of all, as the Tax Foundation stated, this type of tax does not actually redistribute wealth or narrow any wealth inequality. The amount of money that will actually be collected is substantially less than Elizabeth Warren believes, and the proof is already there that this tax does not work. What it actually does do is add an administrative burden to the government, raising expenses and lowering the country's GDP. From valuation issues to tax avoidance, it's a nightmare. Sounds awesome, right? Not to mention, this type of tax may ultimately be unconstitutional. But even beyond that, I've never understood the rationale of continuing to try to tax the rich or arguing that the rich don't pay their fair share. Did you know that the top 10% of taxpayers pay over 70% of all the taxes collected in this country? The top 1% of taxpayers accounted for more taxes paid than the bottom 90% combined. If that's not paying their fair share, then I don't know what is. Many wealthy people create jobs and run companies. A lot of them are philanthropists. If you add a wealth tax on assets instead of income, not only will these people probably find a way to avoid it, but any additional tax will likely be passed on to you, either by cutting jobs, cutting expenses, or raising prices. Is that really what we want? And ultimately, this is the United States of America. We reward capitalism, risk-taking, innovation, and success. We don't penalize it. This wealth tax is indicative of the type of backwards mindset and thinking that is plaguing politicians in places like California and now in the federal government, whose answer to every problem is more taxes. It's a bunch of BS and it doesn't work. Instead, why not incentivize job creation, growth, and innovation like we always have here in this country so that everyone can rise up? What do you think about this proposal? Let me know in the comments below. One of my favorite things about this YouTube channel is reading and responding to your comments, and I look forward to chatting with you directly. Be sure to follow me on your favorite social media channels. Text me to connect with me directly and find out about my next giveaway, and get those free stocks at Webull. You'll immediately increase your net worth. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll catch you on the next video.